Good evening. Welcome to the Josh Volinski Show. And today I have two tenant advocates here. Fine tenant advocates. Bill Dorrity and Lidya Radin. And there's even a third tenant advocate here, myself, Josh Volinski. Now, something extraordinary is happening in the state of New Jersey. There is now a very strong possibility that tenants will get awarded legal arrears.
Well, actually, can I correct you? It's not legal arrears. First of all, thank you so much for having us on your show.
Phrase it properly.
Thank you so much, Mr. Volinski, for donating your airtime and your production team to help us educate the tenants and other individuals in the state of New Jersey.
I said legal arrears because my landlord calls his court expenses on my bill legal arrears, which I never pay.
Right. Well, that's that's a misnomer. So let me correct that. Arrears means. It means that you're paying back rent. What we're advocating for and what we're fighting for now is that every lease in the state of New Jersey is illegal. And the reason it's illegal is because it gives landlords the opportunity to recover their attorney's fees. But that's not true for tenants. So what we're trying to do is educate every tenant in the state of New Jersey that if you look at your lease and you read your lease, you're going to see that there's a clause, a provision, a paragraph that says if your landlord has to take you, the tenant, to court and he wins, he can ask the court to recover his attorney's fees so he'll be made whole again. But that's not true for tenants. So, for example, a week ago, William Dorrity won against his landlord, and he couldn't ask to recover his attorney's fees because his lease is illegal. So what we're doing is we came to New York. This does not happen in the state of New York, for example. In New York, tenants can recover their attorney's fees in successful defenses or actions against their landlords. So it's inherently unfair that in New York, if you're a tenant, and this is true for commercial tenants and residential tenants, if you're a tenant and you win against your landlord, and he has reserved that right for himself, you too can recover attorney's fees and be made whole again. So we tenants in New Jersey, and this is commercial tenants and residential tenants, because remember, commercial tenants are doctors, lawyers, architects, business people. They have a lot invested in their location, and once the landlord realizes that it would damage their business to move, he starts to try to increase and rent gouge. So Bill, for example, just a week ago, won against his landlord, and he's seeking to recover his attorney's fees. And there's different methods of attack. Why don't you tell them about the new law that was proposed by New Jersey Senator Brian Stack?
Well, Lydia said it right. What we have in leases in New Jersey is boilerplate.
And what does boilerplate mean?
Boilerplate means that a landlord can recover attorney's fees, but there's no such provision for the tenant. Now,
wait.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Boilerplate means that every lease has that.
Every lease has that. It's standard.
Right. Exactly. Thank you. So every lease in the state of New Jersey has a paragraph that says, if you're a landlord and you win against your tenant, you can ask to recover attorney's fees to be made whole again.
I have to interject just a moment. This lease is based on state law, NJSA, whatever number it is, and it specifically states NJSA permits us to recover attorney's fees.
Wait. We don't have that law yet.
No. The NJSA only covers landlords recovering attorney's fees. There is a state law in New Jersey. Landlords may recover attorney's fees.
And frequently they do it. Pardon me for interrupting. Thank you for letting me interrupt. Frequently the way a landlord will recover his attorney's fees is by saying that that's back rent. So you pay his attorney's fees as if it were back rent. But in any case, every tenant in the state of New Jersey is not protected because every lease has a provision that says a landlord, if he's successful,
Yes.
In actions against his tenant, can ask to recover his attorney's
That
fees.
is state law at the present.
That's correct. See, what happened in my case was I was charged legal fees. Now, when I didn't pay them, they became legal arrears.
There you go.
That's what-
as if they were back rent.
Why I said that.
Right, as if they were back rent. But they're it's not back rent. It's just it's a convenient way to have you have your landlord recover his legal fees as if they were back rent, and so they're referred to as arrears, but they're not. And so what we're fighting for in the state of New Jersey is that Bill, for example, won against his landlord 3 times. Each time he was not able to recover his attorney's fees. So we went to some tenant leaders and we went to attorneys and landlord-tenant court, and we went to the local bar association, we went to the local law school, and attorneys overwhelmingly support a new state law that says if you're a tenant and you win against your landlord, and your landlord in the lease has reserved this right for himself, that if you, the tenant, win, that you should be able to recover attorney's fees too.
Exactly.
And why don't you tell us a little bit more about
Yes. Well, I can certainly tell you that Senator Stack has introduced this bill. It will become law when signed by the governor. In the meantime, we would like to take some other action while we're waiting for. You see, it will take something. It could take as much as 2 years before a bill winds through the state legislature. Certainly, we would like, in the meantime, to get maybe local laws or something, anything.
So many tenants could be harmed, and in fact, in my bill is we're working together as a team.
We are.
In fact, this came up as an issue in 2008. So 2008,
That's
2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. For the past 4 years, every tenant in the state of New Jersey has suffered. Now we're going to wait another year, another 2 years. So that means 5, 6 years go by, and there are tenants being harmed when they shouldn't.
In the meantime, there are other actions. I'm not at liberty to say at this time, but there are other actions we are pursuing. In the meantime, in the meantime.
Well, actually, we have a 3, 4, 5-pronged approach. And there is something that if you're a tenant in the state of New Jersey, what you can do is review your lease.
Yes.
And if your landlord has that provision, when your lease is renewed, you can say, I want the same equal rights, the same equal consideration as my landlord.
Sure.
And you can ask your landlord to say, if you've reserved this right for yourself, I want it also. And there doesn't need to be a state law. This is the basic principles of contract law.
Yes.
That it's unconscionable to have one party get a large amount of rights and benefits while denying them to another party. So if you're a tenant right now in the state of New Jersey, you can ask for this to be put in your renewal lease.
How do you intend to help Brian Stack, State Senator Brian Stack, one, get his political leaders behind this legislation, and 2, to get co-sponsors for this bill?
Well, thank you. And not only are tenants in your town, about 75%.
Newark and Jersey City, the 75% of the general population, that's 3/4 people, are tenants.
So in addition, we're driving change on a grassroots level. So you've got this huge group, which are tenants, but attorneys want this new law too. So we went, and as part of our education campaign, we went into landlord-tenant court and we started educating the attorneys. So the attorneys are another huge group, constituency of Brian Stack that says, yes, we want to be able to take meritorious tenant cases, and we should be able to have attorneys' fees be recoverable. It's specifically targets the middle class, because if you're poor, you would go to legal aid. If you're rich, you don't care. But if you're middle class and you need to, or you happen to be a commercial tenant and you're paying your fees,
you're out of luck, people.
right. So not only are we getting these huge constituency groups to weigh in, and we're asking them to call and email Brian Stack to drive change at a grassroots level, but we also consulted and talked to real estate agents. And real estate agents in affluent towns like Hoboken, New Jersey, for example, if you're a potential tenant and you pay your real estate agent has a legal duty to the tenant, to the potential tenant, to negotiate vigorously on the tenant's behalf and say, look, if the landlord gets this protection, then my client, the potential tenant, wants it too. So even though there isn't a new law, we're driving forward change on a grassroots level by this.
I can jump in here. For years, Lidya Radin has been fighting a lone battle. She now has traction with my court case driving legislation, and we are getting things done. But for several years, Lidya Radin was fighting by herself. This is no longer the case. This thing is snowballing with lawyers on our side, with senators on our side, with all kinds of people on our side now.
With the good people here at Manhattan Neighborhood Network, with vigorous tenant advocates like Josh Volinski.
Yeah. Yes,
I understand you have a long history of organizing.
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us?
I do have a long history, and a few of my buildings are still organized to this day. I'm amazed. And a few of the tenants who were under my wings went to law school. They graduated, and now I'm surprised to bump into them at 111 Center Street.
Which is landlord-tenant.
And I, at the time when I was helping them, I really knew my law very well. My rent stabilization, my rent control, my Mitchell-Lama, my Section 8, all these tax rake-offs that these landlords get,
So
like J51.
So our purpose is to make these videos and DVDs so we can educate the tenants in New Jersey, because they're not fortunate like the tenants are in New York. Yeah. And it's not just a residential issue. If you're a commercial tenant and your landlord takes you to court and you win, again, you have a lot invested.
I have something to say here. Where I live in Jersey City, this landlord has been selling the tenants a bill of goods. Now, he's saying the rents go up with security guards. The real world experience in rents do not go up with security guards.
Well, that's a second issue we're going to get to.
Well, we will get to that second issue. But certainly landlord-tenant fees ties into this, because it's necessary. Landlords can milk the tenants because they have unlimited resources. Tenants, many of them seniors, are on fixed incomes. But this will change all that by recovering attorney's fees. It will be costly for this landlord to file frivolous lawsuits and eviction notices from henceforth.
Now, Bill, when we were working with Senator Brian Stack and with a lobbyist in Trenton, New Jersey, which is the state capital, Senator Brian Stack proposed two new laws, one for security guards in buildings and one for tenants' ability to recover attorney's fees.
Yes.
So
what happens to the poor tenants who use legal aid and so on?
This is what happened to me. I was unemployed, fighting a battle against my medical school, and I could not afford to be milked for attorney's fees. So I went to legal aid, which in Jersey City is Northeast New Jersey Legal Services.
Yes.
And my attorney, Lawrence Sidoni, deliberately sabotaged my case. And my final submissions to Judge Fast, I'd won against my landlords 3 times in landlord-tenant court, One time I went against them in small claims court. So this is the 5th time I'm up against my landlords. And in my final submissions to Judge Fast, I asked my attorney from Legal Aid, could you please provide the judge with an example from New York state law? He deliberately omitted that New York state law from my final submissions to create a great big hole in my case. That was wrong. And now this is, we would have had this in 2008. He never made the arguments that he should have to Judge Fast, based on the principles of contract law and unconscionability, based on basic fairness, based on, we could cite to authority in New York state law. There were many compelling arguments. I was in a dispute with my landlord over, I was challenging a proposed lease. So if you're a tenant in New Jersey and you get a renewal lease, you can challenge it and you can say, my landlord has reserved the right to get attorney's fees.
I could jump in
Wait,
here.
let me just
When
finish.
you're finished, go ahead.
My landlord in his lease has reserved the right for himself to recover attorney's fees, and I want the same thing. We would have had this in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, but for the fact that Legal Aid in New Jersey deliberately sabotaged my case.
May I? Yes, I can tell what Lydia is saying is it's common knowledge in Jersey City that Northeast Legal Aid does not represent the tenants. For some reason or other, they always tenants wind up being double-crossed. Now, this is a government agency supported by the taxpayers, and why should they be misrepresented? The only reason I was successful, I went to a private attorney. Had I stuck with Northeast Legal Aid, which I had in the beginning, I would have been evicted. Now, how did they get away with this? That's what I want to understand.
It's Northeast New Jersey Legal Services.
Northeast New Jersey Legal Services. But it's funded by the taxpayers. It's a government agency. It does not represent the tenants, and it seems it's deliberately double-crossing them of all corruption. But I want to know how they got away with this, Lydia.
I want to know that, too. And I went to Director Fitzgerald. And I also, there's a law firm that's supposed to oversee Northeast New Jersey Legal Services.
I see.
Margalis and Wind. Jack Wind is the attorney who's supposed to oversee this, and Mr. Margalis. Mr. Margalis of Margalis and Wind is the chairman, or was the chairman, he may still be, on the Board of Trustees of Jersey City Medical Center. Which is also a factor in my case for hurting me. But the bottom line is Northeast New Jersey Legal Services, which is legal aid in the city of New Jersey, in Jersey City, is overseen by the law firm of Margalis and Wind and Jack Wind. And I want to know how they could, Jack Wind is supposed to have won awards for getting a little measure of justice for poor people. He could have protected, with my case, every tenant in the state of New Jersey, but it was more important to hurt Lidya Radin as an individual than it was to protect every tenant in the state of New Jersey. And when this happened, I went to, as I related before the show, I went to U.S. United States Senator Frank Lautenberg.
Oh, wow.
And I said the same thing to his office. It's more important to hurt Lidya Radin as an individual than to protect every tenant in the state of New Jersey. Shame on you, Senator Lautenberg. And I asked for help. He gave my case to New Jersey State Senator Sandra Cunningham. And she's the co-sponsor in another bill, in the security guard bill, but notably absent, she's not a sponsor on tenants' ability to recover attorney's fees.
Exactly.
So it appears that that there really isn't a good faith effort here to have this law pass. This is just, an appearance. So I'm very disappointed in New Jersey State Senator Sandra Cunningham. And she's an attorney. She's a member of the African American community. Her community would benefit greatly from this new law, and I hope that she reconsiders and immediately becomes a co-sponsor.
Well, I want to reiterate that Jersey is now very much a part of the New York metropolitan area.
Thank you.
There's no doubt.
Thank you.
What have your experiences been with harassment and collecting damages for harassment?
Unconscionable. Give me 1 second. In my case, things got so serious that in my case, things got so serious that not only did my landlords lie, they did so much harm to me that I suffer from serious bodily injuries, spinal injuries. They orchestrated a physical assault on me that left me with serious bodily injury, could have left me paralyzed or dead. So when you get into a dispute with your landlord and it's taken to an extreme level, you as a tenant could wind up paralyzed or dead. I wound up with 5 herniated discs and a pinched nerve, and I suffered today. Bill won. He was defamed. He was bad-mouthed. They said horrible things about him. And Bill is now going to be taking action to try to recover his attorney's fee.
I am.
And I suspect you're going to ask for sanctions against the attorney?
Now, on the sanctions, Matt Shapiro is the head of the state tenants organization. Now, he wanted damages. He wanted Vince Ansetti, my attorney, to sue for damages. I'm not clear on what damages and what the legal issues are.
How about the intentional infliction of emotional distress?
Pain and suffering and a number of things, sure.
Well, I think pain and suffering is...
Well, pain and suffering is more of an auto industry, but it follows the same traumatic idea. You were traumatized.
Right. But he's the attorney who was opposing counsel. They were trying to evict Bill, claiming that he was engaged in disorderly conduct. Their own witness on the witness stand, a police detective,
Tom Jones,
got up on the witness stand and said there was no disorderly conduct. Now, when your landlord's own witness, which is a police detective, says there was no disorderly conduct, why are you harassing the 73-year-old tenant in an apartment building that's explicitly donated to elderly tenants and disabled people? It's harassment.
Let me mention one thing. During the trial, Lisa Carney, who happens to be the landlord's staff, one of her issues was that Bill Dorrity said the landlord has a cop on the payroll. So Vince Ansetti said, but wouldn't you want a cop on the payroll? Wouldn't that be a good thing? But that's a little laughed a bit, but it's certainly a serious issue, and certainly that blew them out of the water, and the judge responded to that at the end.
Well, what was the pivotal moment in the trial that Bill just won a week ago was that the police detective on the witness stand admitted that there was no disorderly conduct. And
disorderly conduct.
And so when the landlord is saying we're going to evict Bill based on disorderly conduct, it was a lie, and it was just used to harass Bill because he's a tenant advocate and he's trying to organize his
lies, and more lies.
He was defamed. He was maligned. They made up stories. You know what? Let's have
the judge didn't buy it, but go ahead.
Let's hear from your attorney, Attorney Vince Ansetti, and see what he has to say about this new law.
What has your, Bill, what has your experience been with cluttering and disrepair? The landlords like to pick on older tenants.
They do.
As cluttering.
They do. Well, let me tell you something. I called the city at one time for repairs, and it was abated. The city sent a notice to the landlord. But my landlord made that part of the eviction notice. He said, he called the city without notifying the landlord. See, the deal is if you notify the landlord, it's kept in-house. The city never hears about it. So you're absolutely correct. You have to go outside the building.
Right.
They don't like that.
Well, the landlord was retaliating against Bill for lots of reasons, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a new law passed.
Yes.
We're trying to get real estate agents to negotiate for equitable treatment, fair civil rights treatment.
That's right.
We're talking to attorneys who would like to take tenants' cases And the purpose of these shows are to let every tenant in the state of New Jersey know, this is commercial tenants and residential tenants, that if your lease says that the landlord has reserved the right to recover attorney's fees in successful actions against his tenant, you as the tenant can ask for the same.
That's right.
And you can ask for this. You can ask for this without a state law. We'd like to get a state law passed so it's ironclad.
But in the meantime,
But you can ask when the renewal leases come up. Ask for the same consideration. This is what my landlord's getting. I want the same thing, or it's illegal based on the principles of contract law. If you're a real estate, you're a tenant going through a real estate broker, ask for your real estate broker, even without a state law, to negotiate vigorously on your behalf. Tenants have the right to recover attorney's fees too.
they sure do.
What are your thoughts about one of the landlord weapons, blacklisting? You know, landlords blacklist
Thank you.
brokers and lawyers.
Thank you.
You know,
because
there isn't.
I've been blacklisted.
Yes.
For my efforts, I've been blacklisted. So I want to thank you again, Mr. Volinski, for not blacklisting me, and for all the good people here at Manhattan Neighborhood Network who are helping people like me who have been blacklisted.
And if I can say one thing, there's a media blackout by the Jersey Journal and Jersey City on my case. For whatever reason, I don't understand it. This Access channel in New York, Lidya's channel, Volinski and our producer, has been very gracious in giving access so this story can be told. Everybody can hear it. If not for this station, this thing would have been buried a long time. Nobody would know jack.
You know, that's why the independent media is extremely important. Public access is extremely important. And the courage, let me shake your hand, of men like Josh Volinski you set an example of excellence for the world to follow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, today we had a national feed-in with Amy Goodman on a tenant rebellion and strike that's operating through Occupy Wall Street.
Occupy, very good.
Yeah, you can check out their website.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
So thank you again. I think we're at the conclusion of our show. But remember, tenants have the right to recover attorney's fees too. That's what we're working for.
Yeah.
And this is snowballing, folks. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
We're having more and more people join. We're driving change at the positive, progressive change at the grassroots
This
level.
is moving along.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Thank
the
you, Josh.
security guard issue too.
Security guard is related. We'll hear more about that. But it's tied in with the attorney's fees. Two sides of a coin.
Yeah. Okay, and I want to say this has been the Josh Volinski Show, and tune in regularly. You'll hear more, and you'll learn more about tenant activism and activism in general on all levels. We certainly need a more peaceful world.
However,
Yeah.